Alright, so in this video what I'm going to show is I'm going to show how to add text to an image as well as how to add different shapes to an image, things that might help you analyze a bite mark injury and also help you with determining the mechanism of a bite. And just a disclaimer, I'm not teaching you how to do the analysis or comparison. I'm just simply showing you the Photoshop skills. So just keep that in mind. I'm not trying to teach you how to do a bite mark analysis, but just trying to teach you different Photoshop skills that you can use when doing one. So what we're going to do is, this is my bite mark injury that I've been doing all my enhanced layers with and things of that nature. So that's why you see all these different layers over here. But now I want to start trying to figure out, which arch is the maxillary arch, which arch is the mandibular arch, where my midlines are, which teeth are which. So I like looking at the enhanced just because that's easy for me to kind of see what I'm looking at. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to draw a line separating the maxillary arch from the mandibular arch. And just so everybody knows, I pulled this bite mark image off of Google. I have no clue where it came from, don't know whose it is, don't know anything about it. So again, I'm not teaching you how to pick out which teeth are which. I'm just simply showing you different tools you can use to help you determine that. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line separating. We're going to say this is the top arch. I think if you're a dentist, you would probably agree that that's the top arch, and that this is the mandibular arch. So what we need is we need our line tool, and mine is actually down here in my kind of extra tools. So if I click on that button right there, all my little extra tools pop up. My line tool is right here. Yours may be in a different spot depending on how you have your toolbar set up. But there it is. There's my line tool. And then across the top here are the different settings you can change for your line tool. You could pick out the color that you want. Keep in mind kind of what you're looking at and pick a color that's easy to see. There's a lot of red in this injury, so I don't really want to use red because I think it'll be hard to see. We could use black if we wanted to, but I'm just going to use blue just because I like blue. And we want to make sure that this is the type of mark that you're making. I don't really know what these other settings are, but it'll give you something weird and wonky, so just make sure that that's what's selected there. And over here under weight, we'll tell you how thick of a line you're going to have. So I don't necessarily need a really thin line because there's quite a bit of space between these two arches, so I'm going to bump this up to about 5. And I do want a solid line, but if you didn't want a solid line, like if you wanted a dashed line or kind of a dotted line, you do have those options, but I want a solid line. Okay, so we've got all of our settings for our line the way we want it. So we're just gonna go to where we want to start our line, click your left mouse button, and then just drag across where you want your line to be. And lo and behold, we now have a line. If you will come over here to your move tool, that kind of gets rid of the activation of your line. With your move tool, like let's say I didn't have that exactly where I wanted to, I can actually pick that line up and move it around if I needed to adjust it a little bit. But right there is pretty much where I want it. That's, separating maxillary arch from mandibular arch. And you'll notice that it gave it a name, shape 1. Well, shape 1 doesn't really mean anything to me, so I'm going to rename this to arch separation. Basically, that's just so that when I look at that, I know that's my arch separation line. Okay, now let's say we want a line through our midlines. We're going to do this with the maxillary arch first. And from looking at this, we're going to say our midline is kind of right here between those two teeth marks. So you want to make sure you're back on your photograph layer. That will just make life easy. And we've been using the enhanced, so I still want to draw a line. So I'm going to come over here to my line tool. My line tool is now active. I've got all my little options up here. First thing is I want a little bit thinner of a line just because I don't want it to cover up the actual tooth marks. So I'm going to bump that down to 2. And let's say you don't have to have it be a different color, but if you did, you're just going to come in here and select your color. We'll do black this time just to show it up. Let's say we wanted a dotted line. Great, we'll do that. Now we're going to just, again, click where you want your line to start, and then drag and let go of your mouse button when you get it to where you want it to be. Come over here and select your move tool, and now you'll notice we've got a dashed line. That we, whoop, edit, undo. So you'll notice I moved the picture, not the shape. You want to make sure you're sitting on the shape before you try to move anything, or it'll move the picture. And now I can, drag my line around. And if I have gotten in the wrong place, so that's our maxillary arch line. And again, it gave it just a default name of shape 1. So I'm going to name this maxillary midline. Okay, so let's say we want to draw a line with our mandibular midline. So make sure you're back on your photograph with the active layer. We want our line tool again. My line tool is active. This time I want a solid line, so a solid line. You want to make sure again that this is the box that's checked if you're trying to draw a solid line. My weight is fine. All right, black will work. And then you're going to just, again, click and drag a line where you think the midline is. I'm just, again, picking an arbitrary spot. This may not be where you think the midline is. It doesn't really matter for intents and purposes of this video, just showing you how to draw these lines. Okay, if you come over here to your move tool, you'll now see that we have a solid black line where we think our mandibular midline is. Again, it's been given just a default name. That doesn't mean anything to me, so we're going to call this mandibular midline. Perfect. Okay, so along with kind of showing the arch separation and our midlines, we may want to come in here and label some teeth. And the way that you do that is you're going to add some text, which that's what this little horizontal type tool is. So you're going to click horizontal type tool, and see I've already kind of goobered up. That's my active layer. I actually don't want that to be my active layer. I want to be back on my photograph. Make sure you're on your photograph as your active layer. That's what's highlighted here. And now I want my text tool. And so again, you have to be thinking about how an individual bit on the skin and make sure that you're labeling these teeth right. That's another kind of critical error. You got to be thinking about how this occurred. So, one way I can kind of visualize it is I'm looking at my picture and I just mimic biting onto that skin. So this is your upper right, this is your upper left, this is your lower left, this is your lower right. So again, just make sure in your brain you've got things right. So to add text, that was a really small text box. I'm going to just delete that because it's super tiny because I clicked before I wanted to. So, okay. Now to add text, we're going to draw a little box. And that's just holding my left mouse button down and kind of dragging until I get a box the right size. And we're going to say that this is tooth number 8. Now you can kind of see that that is in a light blue color. Maybe I don't want a light blue color. So come up here and you can, like anything else, just pick a color that you want to use. I actually would just prefer it be black. So I'm going to say okay. And we didn't highlight that before I did that. So highlight your text. And now you'll notice that it's now black. If you wanted to change the style of it, highlight it again, just like you would in like Microsoft Word. You've got all these lovely different types of fonts that you can choose from. Obviously, it would be helpful to pick something that's easy to read. I just kind of like Times New Roman because it's easy. And this gives you, you can make it italic, bold. Again, I just want it regular. This is basically how big it is. So you'll notice if I bump that up to 8 millimeters, that makes it huge. I don't need it to be that big. I think maybe, let's see what 4 looks like. 4 is a pretty good size. So, okay, we've got that typed in there. So I'm going to come over here to my move tool. That kind of takes all my little box away. And again, just like anything else, like if I get it in the wrong spot, I can grab it and move it. And let's say we want it right there. And you'll notice over here it created a whole new layer, and it's got layer number 8. Okay, so let's say we want to do the same thing with tooth number 9. There's 2 kind of ways you can keep adding numbers. You can do the exact same thing with coming back and making sure your photograph is the active layer. Use your text tool, click your left mouse button, drag your little text box there, type in 9. Notice it's still black, Times New Roman 8 and 4, because that's what our settings were. And then come over here to your move tool. Now we can grab it and move it wherever we want to. So that's one way, and you can do that for each tooth you want to label. The other way that you can do it is if you pick one of your tooth numbers here, you can right click and say duplicate layer. You can say 8 copy is fine. Once that has been copied, you've got an active layer. Make sure you're on your move tool. Come over here to your 8, and now look. Because we've actually got 2 8s, I can just grab that second one, and let's say we're trying to label tooth number 7. Great, now I can just double click on that 8. It'll bring my text box up. I can change it to say 7. I can hit my move tool, and now I've got a number 7. And you'll notice that when I typed number 7, it changed the name of that. So that's another way you can get numbers on your teeth. You can either duplicate the layer, move it, and then renumber it, or you can just every single time come over here to your text box, draw a little text box, say 10, move tool, there you go. Okay, so that is how you add maybe lines and numbers to your photograph to help you show or figure out the mechanism of the bite.